us, Coach. 124th big game is at Stanford Stadium at 4 o'clock. If you do have questions for Coach Wilcox, let me know in the chat and we'll call upon you. And we'll go ahead and get started with Jeff Ferrato. Go ahead, Jeff.
Justin, nice to see you.
Well,
Can you give us the latest update on who you expect to have available to play on Saturday? And maybe if you can give us some sense of how many of those guys will also be able to practice and when they can start practice this week.
you should have got a depth chart updated here just minutes ago. I don't know if you've got that yet, Jeff, but the guys listed on that depth chart at this time, we would assume are available to play. And there are still a few people out, but we feel good about this group. And these guys will be at practice. The majority of them will be at practice today.
How has the time off helped you or hurt you or otherwise?
Well, we've welcomed a number of people back, coach or players, obviously, but a number of staff members too, who are able to come back and join us today. Last week, we tried to use the time and be as productive as possible with the players and coaches that were here in terms of getting some work done on the field and in the meeting room. But there was a limited number of available bodies, so we weren't able to have a traditional practice, so to speak. So we did what we could, and the guys approached it really well, and like we would all expect them to. And now we're back at it for a more traditional week of prep starting yesterday.
And if I could ask you one quick follow-up, you guys really seem to develop some momentum in those two consecutive wins offensively. You were playing your best of the year. And then, of course, you had the Arizona game where everything was kind of strange. How much are you worried that that momentum has been derailed, or do you think you can just sort of resume where you were at now that you have everybody back?
We would expect to go out and play well. We have, like I said, a number of people back on the team and available to play. And so it's going to take a really good week of preparation, and we know we'll need to play well to win, but the guys that are out there and competing for us, we feel good about.
Thank you.
And we'll go to David Bush from Bear Insider.
Yeah, Coach. Stanford obviously has had a share of injury problems. What do you see? What did you see from their game last week? And just a little scouting report there.
Yeah, well, they're always going to be a well-coached team. We know that. Offensively, they've played a number of different quarterbacks. They've had some injuries, as you mentioned. They have talent at that position. We would expect whoever the quarterback is. Now, they do have some different styles within those quarterback that have played for them. The running back position is very talented. They'll still give you a number of personnel groupings, which they're known for. And they've got some good players on the perimeter. Michael Wilson's a very talented guy. The tight end's a very, very good player. Defensively, similar to what we've seen in the past in terms of both base and nickel defense, odd and even fronts, simulated pressures, mixed coverages, and they got a very, very good defensive tackle, good edge player, a couple good edge players, and some good defensive backs. They've been in some close games like we have, and I imagine with a play here or there, or a different bounce, then they probably have a few more wins. But they're a good football team, and we know that the big game always is going to be a very tough game, and so we need to prepare for that.
I was going to ask you about that big game. Given all that's going on, but besides that, does it feel like a big game week? Is a big game week something different for you?
Well, we don't approach practice and meetings differently. We try to prepare the best we can every week, but I do want the players to understand the history of the big game and what it means. It's one of the greatest rivalries in all of college football, and we're playing the 124th edition. I mean, half the games are decided by a touchdown or less, and it means a lot to a number of people. And so that's one of the beauties of college football, is these rivalry games. So I don't want that to go unnoticed by our players, but what matters most is that we have a really, really good week of preparation and practice so we can go out and play well on Saturday.
Thanks, Justin.
Yep.
We'll go to Steve Croner from the San Francisco Chronicle.
just to kind of follow up on that. You guys in your 5 years have had some very significant wins, beating top 10 teams, winning at SC for the first time in a long time. But is it fair to say the most significant, the most memorable win you've had in your 5 years was beating Stanford 2 years ago?
Steve, that's a good question. It's hard to rank them because, first of all, winning is difficult, especially in this conference. And we've had some great wins. But I mean, yeah, the win at Stanford a couple of years ago, that was a special moment for everybody. It had been a long time since the Axe was here at Cal, and to see the players' faces and then the fans and the alumni, and that was a special moment. There's no doubt about that. To rank them would be difficult, but I don't know that there's any better than that.
Thanks.
We'll go to Trace Travers with Rivals.
Yeah, Coach, Will Craig and McCade are not on the depth chart. Are both those guys injuries, or is one of them out for other reasons?
Yeah, neither will be available this weekend, Trace. We'll see about next week. But unfortunately, neither one of those guys will be able to play this weekend.
Got it. And Everett started his first game against Arizona. I don't know if we've got to talk to you much about him, but I remember during fall camp, he was starting to flash a little bit. What have you seen from him throughout this, I guess, the last 10 weeks of football?
Yeah, he has definitely gotten better. Everett's a big guy. I think you've probably seen him in person, Trace. You know, he's 6'6", 6'7", 310. Experience is, the best teacher. And he had some good moments. He has a lot to learn from that Arizona game. But as long as he continues to work at it, that's what we need from Everett. And we'll look forward to him continue to get better. He's just a young guy, and we're glad he's on the team. And these are valuable reps he's getting in practice and in the games.
Yeah. And Braden will play in place of Will. He obviously started the big game last year, and he's been a bit up and down this year. What have you seen from him, and what does he have to work on?
Yeah, I think he's continued. He's always a very, very hard worker. And he played last year, as you mentioned, Trace. He had an injury, unfortunately, in the offseason that, kept him out of the weight room and some of the practices and things like that. But he works really hard. He's continuing to get better as a player. And, a little bit like Everett, I mean, every rep, there's a teachable situation for him. And really like Braden's mentality. He's tough. And, I don't know that he or any other guys are going to be perfect, but he's going to go out there and compete like crazy. I know that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'll go to Connor Latorno from the San Francisco Chronicle.
Hey, Justin, at this time of year, what's kind of the key to tuning out all the noise around the coaching carousel for you?
Oh, that's easy, Connor. We're focused on today's practice and doing whatever we need to do to play our best this weekend.
Okay, we'll go to Jeff Ferrato. Go ahead, Jeff.
Justin, if you needed to go to a backup quarterback for whatever reason at some point, would it be Ryan Glover, or would you go with one of your young guys at this point?
Jeff, that would be probably a situational decision based on what's needed during the game, kind of, what's the reason that person needs to go in, what style of play, what's the score of the game, how's the game moving forward. So I think all those things would be taken under consideration.
But as of this moment, assuming that nothing changes, Chase will start?
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
And if I can ask a follow-up question to what Connor asked you, are you getting a lot of chatter about the Washington situation? Have you heard from anybody, or have your folks heard from anybody about that? And what would be your response to people talking about that?
Yeah. I don't get chatter from anywhere, Jeff, other than on this call, just to set the record straight on that. Here's what I'd say. I'm very, very fortunate to have the job I have. I think extremely highly of our players, not only their ability as football players, but I love coaching these guys, our staff that I get to work with. and a million people would love to have my job. And I don't take that for granted. And in our profession, it seems to be you're either on one of two lists, and that could change, by the week. So that's how I would answer that.
Thank you.
Then we'll go to Jake Curtis from Council.
Well, you pretty much answered the question I had that Jeff just asked, but I don't know. I guess I'll just follow up by asking, do you have any interest in the Washington thing, or how do you want to respond specifically?
I think just what I said, Jake, I getting into my own job security or other jobs, I'll just never talk about that. It doesn't serve anybody. The hypotheticals are not something I spend any time on. So, as Connor mentioned, what do you do? I mean, we just coach football, and I love coaching these guys and coaching with our staff. I can say that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go back to Jeff Ferraro. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Justin, it's been such a strange season in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, made it even weirder. But do you guys have a sense that there's still a lot out there for you with 3 games left, and you're mathematically involved in a bowl situation potentially? You'd have to do something that Cal hasn't done in 60-something years to sweep the California schools. But how excited and motivated do you think your players are at this point?
As excited and as motivated as they've been since I've been here. I mean, going to that team meeting yesterday, just the energy in there, it felt like the first day of fall camp. There's been some adversity. There've been some things out of our control. There's been adversity earlier in the season with just some of the results of the games that we were getting. So I think they're very, very eager to practice and play and focused on moving forward and not necessarily talking about what has happened or what hasn't happened. And that's why I really appreciate their outlook and their mindset and their demeanor.
If I could switch gears real quick, can you just talk about what it's meant for you to have Luke Beckett, not only with you since before you got here, but now coming back this year, and not just as a player, but just as an older guy and what he means to you guys? Yeah,
he's one of those that I'm talking about. Luke is he's a mature guy age-wise, but just how he, handles himself, and he's given us really good play on the field, leadership in the locker room, gives guys direction, and it's a unique story. And he's just a good guy to be around. It's good for our program. It's good for the younger players, and he's been here for a really, really long time, probably longer than any one player's been at Cal, maybe ever. I don't know if you're gonna maybe something for Trace to go research if there's been an 8-year player, but I don't know that there's been one. So he's got a pretty special story.
And given that you haven't had Brett Johnson, who you figured to be your best D lineman, even more important that Luke just happened to come back in the building.
Yeah, absolutely. And giving us good football. He's, he doesn't maybe have all the statistics. For those that watch, though, you notice Luke and what he does playing that position. And he's been a really valuable guy for our defense, and really helped some of those young guys along the way. Some of those younger defensive linemen are showing significant improvement, and obviously Andrew Browning's done a fantastic job with those guys, but it's also learning from the older guys how to do it, how to learn in the meetings, how to operate walkthroughs, how to practice, how to compete in the games and chase the ball, and those things are just as important. So it's been really good for us to have Luke back, and when he's no longer here, it's going to feel awkward. He's just been here for so dang long. So,
and since he's not he is on the depth chart, that means he's definitely playing.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Steve Croner from the San Francisco Chronicle.
I kind of follow up a little bit on Jeff's first question in that segment, so to speak. There are people from both schools who will say, no matter what you've done, good or bad, before the big game defines the season. If you win the big game, you've had a good season, and if you don't win the big game, you've had a bad season. I'm guessing you don't necessarily subscribe to that notion, but you mention it maybe this week in practice.
Yeah, I don't know that I would go that far. I mean, we,
But you know, some people do believe that.
yeah, absolutely. I recognize that and I appreciate that. And that's what makes the rivalry so great is people care that much. And so, you know, we talked to our team about the meaning of the rivalry game and the big game and the history of it and the acts and all these things. And we've, you know, each year we talk about the story of the acts and in detail. I don't know, you probably know, Steve, but it's an incredible story. And so I want them to appreciate it because they have a chance to play in this game. And it means, as I mentioned, so much to so many people. Now, knowing the history and how much it means, that doesn't mean you're going to go play better. In order to play well, you need to practice and prepare. So we, you know, really hone in on that. But I really want them to understand the history of it. And I think it's a special game for so many reasons. And I want them to feel that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do know the history.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll go to Trace Travers. Travers,
Mm.
go Trace.
Kind of expanding on that, is there anyone in particular you bring in to talk to the guys about, you know, the story of the axe and just
Well,
everything that's ever happened, really?
by their junior and senior year, they can probably tell you because we talk about it each year. And Luke, to Jeff's question, Luke Beckett came up to me yesterday and said, "Hey, are we going to tell the story of the axe again?" You know, and so you know, it's a long story. I mean, if you go through the details of it, it's a long story, but it's a great one. So, and I think if Josh is on here coming up, maybe Josh will remember a couple things from each of these last big games where we talked about the axe.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, with that, unless give you another couple seconds if anybody has anything else. Coach, appreciate your time and
Right.
we'll see you Saturday.
All right. Thank you.